It's common knowledge that Showbiz Pizza Place is now just a figment of the past and has been for many years. Though if you're not invested in the full history of the establishment, there's a fairly high chance that you don't know what I mean by the Cyberstar Era and how this is even relevant to Showbiz Pizza going out of business. Showbiz Pizza never actually went out of business, and in fact today they still exist on paper. In 1984, Chuck E. Cheese was merged into the Showbiz Pizza Brand, but would ultimately be chosen to become the brand's flagship after disputes with Creative Engineering, who was responsible for the creation of the Rock-afire explosion which was found in Showbiz Pizza establishments. If you're not a geek like me who's into animatronic restaurant lore, then you might be asking what I mean by the Cyberstar Era being the end of Showbiz Pizza, and you probably don't even know what I mean by the Cyberstar Era, so allow me to explain. The Cyberstar Era is the unofficial name for the Showbiz Pizza period during 1989 to 1993. The Cyberstar system, in simple terms, is a VHS playing tape deck set and show controlling system that was used in the back room, or tech room of the restaurant, that would play pre-recorded show tapes that would replace the original reel-to-reel audio recording decks. This means that show tapes would be played using a VHS tape deck with actual reels of tape data that contained video, audio, and movement signals on the alternate audio line. The signals contained within the alternate audio line would be sent to the bots on stage, allowing the animatronics to move, and allowing the sound and video footage to accompany the show to play on the other two tracks. Essentially, it was like a big VCR setup, which is more or less what the actual Cyberstar itself was. Shortly after the Showbiz Pizza Time Inc. merger completed, they had decided to program their own shows independently from Creative Engineering as a cost-cutting measure, which caused turmoil between the two companies. From that point onward, the company would slowly but surely start to kick Creative Engineering out the door and would continue to trim the fat with them as the years progressed. Around the time that the Cyberstar system was introduced into stores, Showbiz began to work 50-50 with Creative shortly after the era began, allowing the Tropical Cleaners to continue to provide their role as the voice for the characters. The exception to this, however, would be restricting Creative Engineering from programming Rock-afire shows at Showbiz for the foreseeable future, which would be taken a step further once the Cyberstar tape deck was introduced. On the surface, the Cyberstar system was a giant VCR player that allowed the bots on stage to move, so it was more or less just an advanced version of the reel-to-reel tape deck. It was taken up a notch by its predecessor, however, by being able to play pre-recorded footage on video monitors up on stage that would attempt to enhance the show. In addition, it made the process of show operation far more convenient for everybody, not just the tech, due to there being a set of control board buttons, typically pressed by a technician or manager, which would usually end up being located somewhere behind the showroom. The buttons on this control board could be pressed to instantly do something like stopping the show entirely or playing a birthday show. So to reference the video title, why is the Cyberstar Era considered the end of Showbiz Pizza? Cyberstar was initially rolled out in 1989 after being tested in 1988. This was right before the name would be cut out entirely from the system just a year later. The process leading up to this was all due to executive decisions from SPT. Behind the scenes, Aaron Fector and the higher-ups at Showbiz Pizza Time were not seeing eye to eye and were trying to make a compromise. Ever since the merger, they were forced to cut funding to Creative Engineering by not having shows produced for new restaurants, not funding the departments that would allow for better shows to be produced, and preventing Aaron from programming and voicing his own characters. As you can probably guess, this made things even worse for their relationship, and it made the tension grow between the two companies. Right before 1990 rolled around, Showbiz Pizza Time tried one final gambit and put an offer on the table for Aaron, insisting on allowing them to have full rights to the Rock-afire explosion. Of course, Aaron declined this offer, believing that the Rock-afire had a future beyond a pizza chain band, and because of this, Concept Unification was rolled out for the next 3 years at Showbiz Pizza Place, and soon, the name as a whole would be dropped and fade into distant obscurity. Shortly after Concept Unification was completed in 1993, all Cyberstar tape decks that used a gray box, which operated the 3-stage, would have an EEPROM upgrade that would prevent them from playing older shows, which in simple terms meant that it was no longer possible to run older Showbiz Pizza era shows on the system at all, finally putting the nail in the coffin for the brand. In short, the reason I consider the Cyberstar Era Showbiz Pizza's curtain call boils down to the fact that for several years it was quite clear that SPT was trying to get Aaron and Creative Engineering out the door, due to the company being more of an expense to them than they were willing to allow. By creating their own technology to operate shows, both for Showbiz Pizza and Chuck E. Cheese, they essentially had no reason to keep Creative around aside from being their part source and for being the voices of the characters. While the concept for the Cyberstar system might feel a bit primitive now, remnants of it can still be seen and are partially still used in some stores that still use their animatronics, albeit using DVDs instead of VHS and having the EEPROM upgraded several times over the years. Because animatronics are no longer the focus of Chuck E. Cheese's stores, the overall structure of the Cyberstar system really is a shell of its former self. and is now just used to play show tapes. Considering how I was able to control almost everything back in the day with just the push of a button, it was quite a step up in their restaurant chains that would enhance the era entirely. In hindsight, I'm not saying that a tape deck is what killed Showbiz Pizza Place, nor was it the reason that Showbiz Pizza Time decided to finally get rid of Aaron and the Rock-afire entirely, but I am saying that this little piece of technology would be the very last piece of the Showbiz pie that kept it relevant before the brand and the Rock-afire explosion would take their final bow on stage. These programmed shows, coupled with the VHS visuals that accompanied them, would on the surface be what took showbiz into the tail end of the 20th century, seeing promise for the future only to fall short. The Cyberstar Era is a contender for my favorite era of showbiz, being shadowed by the pre-merger era. This particular time at showbiz from 1989 to 1993 is unique because you can see a ton of interesting features in the stores that would transition over to what would become the branding for Chuck E. Cheese going forward, with changes to things such as the decor, the design and logos of the store which featured that jade green color and multicolored checker pattern that would be made famous around this time, and the overall aesthetic of the restaurant at this time in general. The font used on the Showbiz logo during this period also looks uncannily similar to the Chuck E. Cheese logo that has been used for the past 35 plus years, and that's why I like it so much. Had Showbiz Pizza survived into the 21st century, chances are this is what all of the stores would end up looking like, or looking close to, and being someone who grew up with Chuck E. Cheese, it's such a strange feeling to see something so similar to what you remember from your childhood, yet so eerily alien at the same time due to it not being a part of my life growing up. It's an era that I wish I could have had the chance to experience, but now only exists in the form of digital media on the vast online ocean that is the internet. Despite all of this though, the Cyberstar Era is a key component in the history of Showbiz Pizza Time and the Chuck E. Cheese brand, especially considering that it is still commonly used in stores to this day, and just like everything else that has happened up until now, it plays a critical role in writing out the story of the company in general. If you want to learn more about the history of the Rock-afire explosion, Showbiz Pizza, and Chuck E. Cheese, be sure to subscribe for more and turn the bell on to be notified when I upload next, and if you enjoyed this video and learned something out of it, consider hitting the like button to help spread it around to others, and share your thoughts below as I'm interested in what you have to say. Just remember to be civil in the comments section because nothing in this video is meant to be taken seriously. If I made a mistake, be sure to let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to fix it when I go into a deep dive into how the Cyberstar system actually worked. Until next time, I'm Beach Kai, and I hope that you have a blessed and prosperous day. Thank you for watching.